Hello, I'm Sasha of Sasha Makes Cards, and welcome to this month's YouTube hop for a Cherry on Top crafts. The theme for this month's hop is spring crafts, which is very fitting. The first day of spring was in March. It wasn't that long ago. And I've also been making a lot of spring-themed crafts lately. I think at least the past 3-4 projects, maybe, if I remember correctly, that I've shared on the Cherry blog were all spring crafts. I know last month's YouTube hop, I did a spring-themed craft for the monochrome theme. Spring has been on my mind, so I am making another spring card. For this hop, I am using the Hello Spring SVG cut file from a Cherry on Top Crafts. They offer a ton of different cut files. I've shared some projects I've made with the cut files before on the Cherry blog. I know a lot of people on the team use them for scrapbooks. Of course, I don't scrapbook, so I like to use it for cards. And I think this Hello Spring cut file works perfectly for a nice, simple spring-themed card. To cut the SVG cut files, it's really easy. All you have to do is download the file, unzip the file. In the folder, there will be the SVG file itself. I use Cricut Design Space with the Cricut Maker, so I uploaded the SVG cut file into Cricut Design Space, sized it to be the size that I wanted it to be. My little trick when I am cutting out digital files to make my cards with is I put a shape into the Cricut Design workspace area, the little grid that you see, size it to measure the size of a US A2 size card, and then kind of space out my elements or size them, whatever I'm working on, to fit nicely onto the card design that I am thinking of. So once I had the Hello Spring sentiment sized, I cut it using my Cricut Maker. I keep tons of scrap pieces of white cardstock just for these, either for cutting out files or doing small little die cuts. I tend to hoard a lot of paper. It does work out pretty well in these situations. So I took a piece of scrap white cardstock, put it onto my Cricut cutting mat, which I will say is not actually Cricut branded. The one I'm using, I actually got this one from a thrift store. Believe it or not. It was nicely tucked away with all of the other office supplies. I think it was like $1.50, something like that. It was a good price for what it was, and it was still nice and sticky. It had barely been used. But anyways, I put my cardstock onto the Cricut cutting mat, put it into my Cricut Maker, and cut out the SVG cut file. Now, I did not show this part just because of the way I have it set up, the way I have my Cricut machine set up, and then not the tripod, but the thing I put my phone in to record videos. It would have been shaking the video. It wouldn't have been very nice to watch. So I didn't show that part. You just see me kind of putting it off screen and taking it back or bringing it back. But once it was cut, I peeled it off the mat and then began ink blending a pretty simple background. Now, when I think spring, I think rainbows, sunshine. So I wanted to make a nice pastel rainbow background. I used a ton of Distress Oxides for this because, of course, I was doing a rainbow. Some of these aren't very pastel, however, I just ink blended them very lightly, and I think it worked out in the end. The colors I am using are Worn Lipstick, Spiced Marmalade, Scattered Straw, which I actually at first thought I had grabbed Squeezed Lemonade, but I just decided to go with the Scattered Straw, and it worked out pretty well. The Bundled Sage, Salty Ocean, and then Shaded Lilac. Often when I'm ink blending a ton of colors like this, especially if I'm ink blending rainbows, I find it's quite easy to accidentally ink blend too much of one color and then not leave enough space for the next color. So before I fully started ink blending the rainbow, I kind of very lightly went in with each color blending brush, sort of marking out where each color of the rainbow was going to be on my background. This just makes sure that each color is even and I can actually ink blend the full rainbow. Once I've marked out the colors, I then, of course, go back in and re-ink blend everything so it stands out a bit more. And then to complete the background, of course I had to splatter it. I always splatter my backgrounds, or pretty much always. So I grabbed my splatter box, put the card in it, and then used the Spellbinders Splatter White Opaque Watercolor Bleed Proof Paint. I've been really liking this, and it works really well for splattering. All I did was just take my fan brush, dip it into the little pot of paint, put it onto my glass mat work surface, sprayed it with a bit of water, and splattered it directly onto the card. I like to do it, at least I try to do it. If I plan things right, then I try to splatter the card while I still have some things left to do, so that way it will actually dry in time. I can't always use a heat gun, and I do sometimes use the heat gun to speed up the process if I have it out for other things, but I don't usually just get it out for that. But since I still had to die cut something, I did it before, give it a time to dry. Then I got out my Spellbinders Platinum Scout die cutting machine and die cut the Springtime Flowers die set from Echo Park Paper Co. Now, I actually used this die set for my card last month. I think even in the video I said I really like this die set, and I already have plans on other cards to make with this die set. So I guess this is another card I had planned. Well, not really at the time, but here's another card with this die set. It's a really cute, simple little flower. It goes so well with so many things. This die is from the collection In Full Bloom. It just works perfectly for a spring crafts themed YouTube hop. Now, since I was keeping the large Hello Spring sentiment just plain white, I decided to also keep the little flower bouquet that I just die cut white as well. So I just die cut it from the copious amounts of scrap white cardstock that I have laying around and just glued it together using some Barely Art liquid adhesive glue. I think keeping the Hello Spring sentiment white and then adding the cute little bouquet of flowers onto the side, also keeping that white, it just looks so nice against the nice pastel rainbow. It really stands out, and I really like how it turned out. To finish off the card, I glued down, again using the Barely Art liquid adhesive glue, the Hello Spring sentiment and the bouquet of flowers onto the finished ink blended card. As I was gluing down the Hello Spring sentiment, my original plan, because at that point I hadn't actually thought about using the little flowers, I was just going to keep it to the Hello Spring. However, once I got thinking about it, I thought this die cut would work really well with it, so it's there now. So I kind of had to shift over the Hello Spring sentiment a little bit. I hadn't really sized it to fit anything else when I was cutting it in Cricut Design Space, but I shifted it over and then put the bouquet of flowers on the one side, and it actually fits quite well. I then just used a pair of spring-assisted scissors to trim off the excess, and it was good to go. And that is the completed card project. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out the description below for a complete list of all the design team members participating in this hop. Hop along, view some fun spring-themed crafts, and for a chance to win a $25 gift card to shop at a Cherry on Top Crafts. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.